We're in 1 Corinthians 13. We are studying the love chapter. The love chapter. And we're studying those qualities of love. How many are there? Finally, I got somebody back there. Yes, 16 qualities. Some of them are positive. What do we mean by that? They're good. Yes, they are things we are supposed to do, okay, in order to show love. And then there are some that are described as negative, and that means these are things that we are not supposed to do if we're going to show love. So Paul, in a very concise manner, describes 16 qualities of love, and we are on the sixth quality. Okay, the sixth quality. Let me ask you this. When you think of love, do you think of something that's positive? Sure. Okay, and that's the reason that we emphasize the positives and we do away with what? The negatives. Here's the one we're on today. 1 Corinthians 13:5. Charity doth not behave itself unseemly. Okay, charity doth not behave itself unseemly. We're going to do the same as we have done with the previous lessons. We'll start by defining our words, and then we will look at some Bible examples, and then we will look at some application of this concept to our lives. Okay, anybody else need a copy? Nobody? Very good. All right, let's look at some definitions of this word. Doth not behave itself unseemly. This is one word in the Greek language, okay? So it's all together. Does not behave itself unseemly. Strong says that it comes from a word that means shapeless. That is inelegant. Okay? What comes to your mind when you think of something that's elegant or inelegant? What do we think of? We think of an elegant person. Beauty, okay? Yes, usually it's somebody that's well-dressed, isn't it? You know, especially ladies, we refer to them as elegant. What elegant attire she has, right? And so well-dressed. But an individual who is unseemly is not elegant, he's inelegant. Okay? And you walk around town, you don't have to go very far, you see some of them kind of folks around, don't you? Some inelegant kind of individuals. So at least you got a picture now of what elegant and inelegant is, what is seemly and not seemly as far as dress is concerned. Okay? But he's applying it to love. Thayer says that it means this: to act unbecoming. Barnes goes on to define it as follows. It means to conduct improperly or disgracefully or in a manner to, listen to that, deserve reproach. Okay? In a manner that deserves reproach. In other words, acting in such a terrible manner that it would be right for another individual to stand up and say, don't act like that. Okay? Sometimes we have to tell our kids that, don't we? Sometimes our wives have to tell husbands that. Wesley's down here laughing. He remembers. An author by the name of Scroggie says this: love is not disorderly or eccentric or indecorous. There's that word again, right? Decor. Okay? The way you dress yourself. It is never lacking in propriety or politeness. Another way to interpret that word is this: love is not rude. It is not rude. And I looked up the word rude in order to find a definition to that term, and there were several. It says this: discourteous or impolite, rough in manners or behavior, rough, harsh, ungentle. Okay, now if we flip the coin over and define the word positively, it means this: love has good manners. We don't talk about manners very much in our society anymore, do we? I remember when I grew up, you heard about manners. Okay? You heard about them a lot. And today we're fighting against manners. That little word manner means this: polite, courteous, gracious, refined, cultured, well-bred. Let me ask you this. Can a person be very, very poor and still be cultured? Yeah. Can an individual be born from a very obscure family and yet still be well-bred? Oh, yes. Can a person come from a cultured family and be very rude? Yeah. You see, folks, what we're talking about is not something that you're born with. It's something that you're what? You're taught. Okay? And it's a skill set that you develop. Okay? Notice what the Bible has to say. I found this interesting. Some of these words that we're talking about when it comes to manners and stuff. The words of a wise man's mouth are gracious. Now remember, one of the definitions of the word manners is gracious. Okay? So a wise man will always speak graciously. Another passage is 1 Peter 3, verse 8. Finally, be ye all of one mind, having compassion one of another, love as brethren, be pitiful, be courteous. Be courteous. And we live in a very uncourteous society, don't we? I forget where we were. We were at some theme park, Kathleen and I, and man, I was thirsty, so I went into this place, and you buy, one of them $20 Cokes, and I went up to check out, and there was a guy in front of me, and then I was right behind him, and he checked that guy out, and I mean, before I could even step forward, another dude just went right in front of me and checked out. And the guy let him check out. Kathleen said, "Did you say anything?" And I said, "No, I didn't say a word, but boy, do you not want to." Ooh-wee, man, just discourteous. Berkeley says this, love is not unmannerly. Barclay says, love does not behave what's that word? Gracelessly. Guys, if you're going, love is very graceful in the way it approaches things. It has good manners. It's polite. It's courteous. It's not rude. Okay? It's never vile and contemptuous in nature. Okay? So very, very difficult to practice. Notice what some of the versions have to say. Love does not behave itself unseemly, King James Version. Exact same thing in the American Standard Version. The New King James says, does not behave rudely. New American Standard, love does not act unbecomingly. The English Standard Version says, or rude. It's just following up on the previous verse. New International Version, does not dishonor others. Phillips, love has good manners. New Living Translation, or rude. The Message, love does not force itself on others. So, here's what's interesting to me, okay? And I fight this battle all the time with individuals. There's good versions and there's bad versions, and we could talk about all the differences in versions, okay? Guys, the reality is, had I not already defined all those words before I even read what all the versions have to say? You see, if you have the right tools of Bible study, guess what? You don't need 10,000 versions. You go to your tools, and guess what they do? They define the Word. Okay? And so I'd rather just use a few tools of Bible study to get my definitions, because guess what? All the translations do most of the time, not all the time, most of the time, is just use a lot of different ways to say exactly the same thing, don't they? Okay? Love is not unseemly. Love is not rude. Love is polite. Whatever they say, all those things mean exactly the same thing. And if I know how to study a verse, guess what? I'll find all that out. And all I need is just my one translation in front of me. Okay? And we can talk about that more later. Notice some Bible examples of doth not behave itself unseemly. The first one is Jesus. Are we surprised that Jesus does not behave himself unseemly? No. Because you see, the Bible says God is love and Jesus is God. Love does not behave itself unseemly, therefore Jesus will not behave himself unseemly. Okay? And we got several examples of that in our text. He spoke gracious words, Luke 4:22. And all bare him witness and wondered at the gracious words which proceeded out of his mouth. Would you have loved to have actually heard the voice of Jesus? Hey, just live in such a way so that one day you can, forever and ever. You know that? Notice the next text, during the crucifixion. Was he rude or vile during the crucifixion? No. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 23, who, when he was reviled not again. When he suffered, he threatened not. Folks, there's love. Okay? Even when Jesus was being mistreated, even when Jesus was being beaten, even when Jesus was having all this stuff cast into his mouth, guess what he never did? He never responded in kind. Okay? He never acted like his tormentors. That's love, folks. And we get that challenge every day, don't we, in our lives? Or a lot of times in our lives. Somebody, gets in our face and really starts screaming and yelling or whatever they're doing, and all of a sudden we find ourselves what? Doing the same thing they're doing, right? In the same way that they're doing it. And we look just as bad as they do, sometimes even worse. That's not love. Love just kind of stands there and grins and bears it. You know it? And that's what Jesus did, didn't he? Who, when he was threatened, didn't do what? Threatened not. This next one was interesting to me. This is where people think about biblical text, and sometimes when you read it, you go, wow, that's an interesting concept. The concept was this: Jesus never, ever barges in on anybody. And he took that from Revelation 3, verse 20. Jesus says this, behold, I stand at the door and knock. And if any man open unto me, I will come into him and sup with him. Okay? But see, Jesus isn't going to what? Barge in on you. He's not going to force himself on you. That's rude. And Jesus isn't what? He isn't rude. He doesn't behave unbecomingly. You see, it wouldn't be becoming of God to force himself on us. I'm going to make you believe in me. No. He's just going to what? Stand at the door and what? And knock. Okay? So I find it interesting that you find these examples of Jesus being a very becoming individual, one who behaves himself properly. But, that usually what individuals say, well, that's God. Right? He knows how to behave. What we need are good examples of just regular, everyday Joes like us. Okay? And so, guess what the Bible does? It gives us examples of those. And we see one of those examples in a man by the name of David. Okay? Guys, David was liked or disliked by King Saul. Yeah, disliked is probably an understatement, isn't it? Okay? He despised him. And went on a manhunt for him, did he not? And sent David into the wilderness in order to preserve his own life, didn't he? What was interesting is, on one occasion, David went into a cave, it was getting dark, and he was going to spend the night there. And then, all of a sudden, guess what happens? Torches, and people, and soldiers start coming into the cave. And there you are in the cave already. And then all of a sudden you see this torch on this man's face, and guess who it is? It's Saul himself. You're in the same cave with Saul. He doesn't know you're there. So you just be what? You just be quiet. Shh. And so they were very, very quiet, weren't they? And Saul apparently was tired, and what happened to him? Goes to sleep. The enemy is asleep. And guess what David's men just kept telling him? David, here's your chance. David, God said He would deliver the kingdom in your hand. David, just go up there and kill him. That's all you got to do. And guess what David wouldn't do? Wouldn't kill him. And guys, we see that in this particular chapter, 1 Samuel verse 24. Look at verse 6 and 7. And he, that's David, said unto his men, the Lord forbid that I should do this thing unto my master. Wow. The Lord's anointed. To stretch forth mine hand against him. seeing he is the anointed of the Lord. So David stayed his servants with these words and suffered them not to rise against Saul. Did David demonstrate love or hatred that day? Folks, he just demonstrated a great love for that man, did he not? Cut off the skirt of his garment, didn't he? Okay. Next day, Saul wakes up, everything's wonderful. Got to get David. Come on, boys. Out they go. Okay. Gets a little bit away from the cave, and guess who comes out? David. And David now addresses King Saul. Now remember, he's on a manhunt, right? He wants to kill you. So Saul hollers out, "Hey, you dog! Need to talk to you." I want you to listen to how David addressed him. And David also arose afterward and went out of the cave and cried after Saul, saying, "My Lord the king." Wow. Still reverences and still respects the position of that man, doesn't he? Okay? Guess what David did not do on this occasion, folks? He did not behave himself unseemly. You know that? Now, I find it interesting that David was a man, right? I could have given you another illustration where David almost behaved unseemly. Okay? Y'all remember that? There was another man made him mad. Huh? Nabal, the fool, remember him? Okay? Old David loaded up his men, raced toward his house, and had it not been for Abigail, David would have done something very unseemly. You know what? He was going to destroy an entire house because of one man's actions. Fortunately, that good woman saved him from that. Okay? But on this occasion, David behaves how? Very seemly. Okay? With great decor. Okay? Are there going to be individuals that we have huge disagreements with? Are there going to be individuals who are our enemies? Yes. And guess what, folks? God still expects us to act the right way. Okay? Love does not behave itself unseemly. Okay? Now, let's look at some application. If you notice, your notes are a little thicker today, okay? We got a whole bunch of stuff we could talk about, so we got to do some flying right here. Look at what Scroggie has to say in his commentary on this particular text. There is so much awkward piety, so much blundering goodness, so much unattractive sanctity, and so much unloving religion. Wow. Now, just go home today, okay, and just think about each one of those things that he makes mention of, okay? Notice what he says. He begins with what? Awkward what? Piety. We like to think of ourselves as pious individuals, right? But yet, as we try to practice our piety, sometimes we're pretty awkward, you know it? And sometimes others look and scratch their heads and say, "That's being pious?" Okay? And notice he says there's a lot of unloving religion. You see, the minute you say religion, what gets attached to it? Love. Or at least it should. Okay? And yet there's so much unloving religion today, isn't there? Even among who? Even among Christians, among brethren. Okay? If that's the way you're supposed to be loved, I want to be loved. Have you ever felt like that? Okay? Notice this next one. I thought this was interesting. Manners are meant to reduce the friction of human interaction. Guys, in our world today, you have me and you have you, right? Now I'm going to make a profound statement. I am me and you are you. Right? And each of us has our little world, and each of us has our own ideologies, and each of us has our own desires and our own wants and our own little circle of life, don't we? And then all of a sudden, these two people come together. And guess what? Sometimes my wants aren't what your wants are. Sometimes my ideology isn't what your ideology is. Sometimes my background isn't what your background is. And guess what? We come together. And guess what manners help us do? Reduce the friction within that human interaction. Okay? I thought that's interesting, don't you? Look at that point B. Manners enable those two people to make contact without problems or ill will. Words that show manners. Wow. And these used to be common words, didn't they? Okay. Kathleen and I, we like to watch HGTV, or at least I do. I have the clicker most of the channel changer most of the time, so I turn it on HGTV. And we love that show Flip or Flop. Okay, with the Gaines. Okay, over in Waco, Texas. And last night, their kids were there, and they were in some place getting herbs, buying herbs, and the mom says, "It's time to go." And one of the little kids looks up and says, "Yes, ma'am." I was just taken back. I said, "Did you hear that?" You don't hear that very often in society anymore, you know it? I was just shocked. Pardon me, thank you, please, excuse me. I would prefer if, do you mind, I'm sorry, what can I do for you? I would suggest, I recommend, may I have permission to? You're welcome, or just welcome, right? Just good, simple, kind, mannerly words today. Now, I want you to look under the note, because this saddens me today. And I don't know what to do about it. Okay? And I fight this battle as a gospel preacher. Okay? So we'll talk about it a minute. In today's society, we have definitions of terms, but we can no longer make application of those terms. Okay? I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Let's take, for instance, modesty. Okay? I can look up the word modest, and I can get a definition of it, right? Okay, and I can tell you what the definition of the word is. But the minute I stand in the pulpit or in a classroom or anywhere else, and I now try to apply modesty to your life, guess what people tell me? Preacher, that's just your opinion. Okay? Yeah. But the problem that really kills me is that's my opinion. Okay? Now, let's go with respect for it. And I'll show you how this is hard, okay? We think this is easy, and it's not. All right? Respect. Okay? Respect. In our society, well, can I define the word respect, what it is? To have reverence for, to have awe for, to show honor toward, right? And then, I have no way of applying it anymore. Right? Does a kid respect you if he says, yes, sir, or no, sir? Oh, yeah, man. He really has respect. Well, what if he leaves off the sir and just says yes or no? Does he respect you? What if he changes the yes or no to yeah or no? You see, used to, if you didn't say sir, you were what? Disrespectful. Now, you can what? You can leave off the sir and still say yes, and you're respectful. Right? Years and years and years ago, women never wore pants to church. That was disrespectful. That's what we were taught. Wasn't it? Some of the women in here can probably remember them days. You always wore a skirt. Okay? But see, times have changed. Now that first woman who wore a pantsuit to church, amongst all them skirt wearers, Man, she's the most disrespectful woman in the world. Did you see her? No respect at all. And now every woman wears pants, you disrespectful things. But you see, now we say what? Oh no, that's not disrespectful. Do you see what I'm talking about? How do you apply what is respectful, what isn't respectful? How do you apply? Today we have weddings, don't we? Talk about modesty. There's some daddies, they don't want their daughter wearing anything with their shoulders showing. That's immodest. But they put some little spaghetti straps there. Now they're modest. How you do that with spaghetti straps? I don't know. Okay? But you see, in today's society, the reason this came up for me was because we were at a congregation and the young men were preaching. Okay? And the elders did not require a tie to be worn. And one Sunday these guys came up and they were dressed more sloppy than dress pants and a nice pullover shirt. And so I go and I just talk to the elders. I said, guys, we're getting kind of sloppy up there on the Lord's, on that night that the young men are holding the services. And there needs to be a little bit of decor and there needs to be a little respect shown. Okay? Well, anybody who found out that I went and talked to those elders, guess what I became? You troublemaker! You're just out there talking about your opinions. See, everything you go to now to try to make application is all what? Opinion. And you can't preach your opinion. And see, it really makes it hard nowadays to make application of biblical principles because the minute you do, everybody says you're preaching your opinion. Now I got a question in my notes. Listen to what it says. Who determines that manners are seemly and what manners are not seemly? Who makes that distinction? You know what I mean? Who made the distinction 50 years ago that it was good to wear skirts and yet today it's good to wear pants? Who makes that determination? You know? I don't know. Gil? Don't I wish? Things would be a lot different if this old granddaddy could lay down the law. Okay? Beverly? Now, whoa. Oh, yeah. But see, back then, if you wore a miniskirt or pants, it was disrespectful, wasn't it? Now, miniskirt also was immodest, sort of, kind of, because it depended upon your definition of modesty. Isn't that what they, that's what they, is it 2 inches above the knee? Is it at the knee? Is it 2 inches below the knee? Is it 3 inches above? Who makes that determination? Huh? Oh, I know, but I'm just talking about shorts and stuff, because once, mine is got to be at the knee. Well, what if a girl comes in and it's an inch above the knee? Oh, she's immodest. Really? An inch above the knee just because you say what? See where it gets into all this crazy stuff. And so now we have no way to apply the principles. And the reason I make mention of that is because we're talking about love being mannerly, right? What's mannerly and what's not mannerly? You see? If a child says, yeah, at least they acknowledged you. Better than a kid just not even looking at you. Right? Now, if she hadn't said anything to you, then she'd have been disrespectful. That, you can almost see the parent saying that to the teacher who called him in for a counseling session because the child was disrespectful for saying, yeah. Okay, don't call me yeah. Well, she at least talked to you. Okay? Wasn't like she just turned you off. See, we don't have any way to make application anymore in our society of godly principles. And it kills me. Okay? Just kills me, Larry.
That same argument culturally is used with doctrinal issues.
Oh, yes.
So that was the culture back then. Now it's different.
That's right.
So we don't have to do that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we see it going on, you look around our audience today, you see a lot of men wearing coats and ties and stuff. Guys, there's tons of congregations you can go to today, and guess what? There are no coats and ties worn, okay? None, okay? And so, is that person being disrespectful? Because that's been the argument as to why to dress up is to be respectful to God, show respect to God, okay? And then they don't dress like that. Well, are they disrespectful? And it's almost like everything you were taught 20 or 30 or 40 years ago is no longer true today. Okay? And now we just don't have any standards and way to discern anything. And it makes it very difficult for us as Christians, okay? How?
Many of us have been in the military, and we have that upbringing. Because I remember the first words I was told, the first and last words out of your mouth will be sir. So we bring that upbringing to our children and vice versa.
Sure. Yeah. A lot of it is how we've been trained culturally in our world. Absolutely. David, you have something? Okay, very good. I just wanted to point that out to you that we're in a situation in our world that's very tough. If love is polite, then we have to ask the question, what? What is polite and not polite? How do I demonstrate politeness or not being polite? Okay. Notice that point C. Courtesy is just love in the little things. I like that. Love in the little things. Courtesy. Now watch this next point. Love does away with rudeness. Man. Now remember, rudeness is defined as discourteous, rough, harsh. And one individual, he said, maybe we need to have what they call a rude test. How do we determine whether something is rude or not rude? Okay, a rude test. And he gave some points. Our timing is poor. I'm talking to Wesley. Brianna walks up, and she needs to talk to me. That's fine, but guess what she does? She butts into our conversation. Hey, gal, your timing's bad. Right? That's bad timing. Got to wait till you're what? Wait till your time. Notice the next one. Our tones are harsh. I get accused of that one a bunch. You just got a harsh tone. Okay? Our tones are harsh. Notice this next one. Our agenda is selfish. Fourthly, our body language is angry. Okay? And then look at the next one. Our actions involve such things as interrupting, cursing, threats, name-calling, belittling, the silent treatment, failure to look another in the eye, and yelling or screaming. One man said, rudeness is the weak man's imitation of strength. That's pretty good, you know it? Tries to make everybody afraid of him by what? Being rude. Okay? Trying to show strength through rudeness. True or false? Rudeness never happens in the church. Oh man, really? See, this is the problem at Corinth. That's what's interesting to me. This thing about not being rude, about not behaving unseemly, wasn't written to a group of people who were ungodly sinners. It was written to a church. Wasn't it? And we see it at the church of Corinth. Look what Paul says with regard to the Lord's Supper. For in eating, everyone taketh before another his own supper. And one is hungry, and the other is drunken. Now we'd have to get behind what he's talking about there. They had combined a common meal with the Lord's Supper. And when they came together, guess what? Everybody tried to rush to the front of the line. Wait a minute, you just get in the back. I prepared more food than you. I deserve to be in the front. And so by the time everybody finishes, you're the last one. And guess what? There is no food. Now that ain't right. You got a plate full and I got chicken back. I don't want no chicken back. Now some of you may like chicken back. I don't like it. I want no gizzard. Want no liver. Okay? I want one of them big plump breasts. You got 3 on your plate, you should have left one for me. Okay. Look at this next one. The use of spiritual gifts in the assembly. Folks, go read 1 Corinthians 13. They were being rude. A man would get a revelation from God, and rather than letting another man finish, guess what they would do? He'd pop up and start giving his revelation. That's rude. Paul had to regulate those miraculous gifts in 1 Corinthians 13. Okay? He even had to tell the women what? Quit being rude. You ain't even supposed to speak in the assembly. And they were. But he tells them they weren't supposed to. Find that interesting. Okay? Can we be rude in preaching? Yes. Paul tells us to speak the truth in love. When we answer an individual, we're to do it in meekness and fear. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15. The servant of the Lord must not strive, but be gentle unto all men. Had a guy at Eastwood. Man, every service after it's over, he's on me. Every service. This guy had a hobby, certain doctrine that he believed in fervently, and every service he'd come to me and he just hit me over and over and over and want to get in an argument with you. And I'm telling you what, it was all I could do sometime to just stand up there and just curtail myself from just eating him up. You know, it just makes you mad. And you just want to be nice, don't you? But sometimes it can get pretty tough. Look at point C. Business meetings, elders meetings, conversations involving disagreements, Bible classes, and even joking among Christians can be rude. Can it? Somebody can make fun of you, and somebody can put you down, and somebody can belittle you and look at you and say, "Oh, I was just joking." No, you weren't. Okay, and it happens, doesn't it? Guys, there's been congregational meetings where there's a major problem, and during the course of that meeting, men and women are standing up, shouting and arguing and cursing at one another. Christians, love doth not behave itself unseemly. The real test of good manners is to be able to put up with bad manners pleasantly. How you like that? That's the real test. Watch this. Rudeness can come back to bite you. There's this waitress. She bought this man coffee and a donut. He looks at the donut and the donut is smashed. And he says, "What in the world is my donut doing smashed?" And she said, "Well, I just brought it as you ordered it. You said you wanted coffee and a donut and step on it." That's rude, isn't it? Guys, unseemly actions in marriage. Read that. Okay, there's two different extremes when it comes to marriage and how to handle conflicts. One is everybody shuts down. You don't talk about it. You sweep it under the rug and just forget about it. The other is for an individual to get very hostile in the relationship. Okay, it says this: anything sets one off. Sets one of the mates off, and he or she lambasts their partner without restraint. And what's interesting is the note. It is an unmannerly, discourteous, and aggressive style that is guaranteed to be lethal to love. Wow. Okay? So the first one you can get by with, okay, sweeping it under the rug, keeping it quiet, not talking. Relationships can handle that, but you get on the other side, and you get a party that's rude and mean and vile in the way they handle conflicts and stuff, guess what? It'll destroy the marriage every time. Okay? All righty. Good stuff. Thank y'all.